All right. Well, good day to Summit family and special greetings to Josiah and Sarah Karisawa, Summit's global partners in Kenya. It is so good to see the both of you. The whole Parker family was out to visit you guys last year, and it feels like it was yesterday and forever ago at the same time. And we can't wait to come and visit you again. But welcome to this edition of the Global Partner Conversations. It is really good to see you, and I'm eager for the Summit Church family to get an update on how you're doing and how ministry is doing and all of that. So maybe we can start with just some introductions of yourselves and your family, and we'll move from there.
Okay, thank you so much, John. We are really excited to be doing this interview for Summit. My name is Reverend Josiah Olekirisa.
And my name is Sarah Kiriswa.
And we are always excited to be able to connect with Summit. We were out there about 2 years ago, Sarah and I, and our children. We have 5 children, 5 older children, Neema Kokan, and his wife, Rahema, and our grandsons, and then Zawadi and David, and our granddaughter, Lasey, and Malkia, and Masero. They're all through with school, except for Masero is in her last year of school. Neema is, of course, a musician, and Andrew works with the women and is a photographer. Zawadi works with the church and in the health sector. Malkia is an astrophysicist and just joined a new challenge with the Kenya Space Agency. And Masero is still in her final year of college. And we come, of course, we work among our people, the Maasai. We were the first Christian in our first generation Christian. And we felt a call to go back to our community and work with our people to help them manage change and just to communicate Christ to them.
Yeah. So give just a little bit of background for your ministry, and I know Sarah, you grew up in a Christian family. Josiah, you were the first follower of Jesus in your family, and you guys are now ministering back, Josiah, in your home village. So it's been a long story of serving both globally and now very locally. And so maybe just give a quick kind of overview of how God has called you in various seasons of your life.
I think the first, of course, when I got married there, maybe to start there, what I mostly found are challenges in education, water, health, and of course, spiritual growth among the people. Like Josiah has said, of course, then we are first generation Christians among our people. And there was everything to do, and we had to be everything, because our children used to walk something like 18 kilometers to and from school. And they would have to cross rivers, which are flooded sometimes, and there would be wild animals. And we felt really called to make a difference in education. And of course, spiritually too, we got involved in the church and began to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, showing the Jesus film and ministering and sharing among our people. And slowly, of course, we saw that God was changing people and saving them. And soon we had a church under a tree. And over the years, we have moved from under trees to now a relatively beautiful building, as you saw when you were last there.
Yeah,
but I saw the water challenge.
Yeah, I saw the building has progressed even more. The windows are in and they look beautiful. It looks almost complete.
Yes.
It is. It's just about, and that is, and that is. Thank you so much. We still need again to say thank you to Summit, because we were able to do a lot of stuff. Of course, we did in Sarah was a high school teacher for many years. I was working in Bible translation and literacy for many years myself. For about 30 years, we worked out there. But just about almost now, 15 years ago, we felt called to go back to our community.
Mhm.
And we're so thankful to the partners like Summit because they enable us to do that. Because we are first generation Christians, we had to raise our own support, so we keep livestock and try to support ourselves as we serve our people.
Yeah.
And God has been so gracious, as He said. The church has grown tremendously.
Yeah.
And not only our local church, but several other congregations
Yeah.
that we have.
Yeah.
Maybe just to add on what Josiah has said, we were also able to start a school. Remember visiting the school, and which of course has been closed since COVID started. But we now have the 10-year-olds who are in school currently, and the government has given us 4 teachers plus others that parents have employed. So the school is doing quite well.
Yeah.
Sarah,
I do want to hear a little bit about that because you guys have gone back to your home community, both with kind of with an evangelistic heart and a community development heart. You've built the church, you've built the school and community development projects, and so and the school really has been quite an accomplishment, both in starting it with just privately raised resources, and then getting the government support in providing teachers and all of that. So give us a quick status update of the school. Obviously closed because of COVID, but what things are happening with the school and what's the next stage of development?
I'll have Sarah say, because presently Sarah is the chairperson of the board of management of the school. And of course, we as a church are the sponsors.
Yeah, for actually the last, since you were last there, which is last year, but one,
No,
I think
3 years ago.
3 years ago almost, we've had a relatively good head teacher. And of course, as you know, the head administrator normally determines the direction that things go mostly. Mm-hmm. So we now have a good team of teachers led by our head teacher. His name is Njuguna. And we also have a very good group or a team that make up the board, people who are really committed and are resourceful for the school. We reopened just this month at the beginning, and we had to go fast and check out the preparedness of the school to do that because, of course, of the COVID situation, to ensure that the students will be able to access basic things like hand washing facilities, be able to be distanced well in class, and that the teachers would be there. And that has happened, and they're doing okay. We've been feeding the children every lunchtime. But today I just talked to the head teacher and he was saying, Madam, can we ask the children to bring food to school because what we had got is not enough. And I told him it's okay because there are not too many. They can bring a snack from home until we realize full opening, because all the other students are not in school. It's just these 10-year-olds. Yes.
Yeah. And we are, as I said, it's been, as Sarah said, the school has really been. This year, we have, last year, we had one of our first children, a girl, qualified to go to university, who were as a product of the school, very fast. Of course, she has challenges. She has not joined because of this COVID, but of course, there are always also challenges of funding and so on, and she was not able to get a government scholarship, but we are very excited about that. This girl, her name is Sarah, and we are really excited about that. She was village bred, she did all her primary education there, and she qualified, and that gives hope to a lot of children out that in the community that it is possible.
Yeah.
to
I know that
break
must be
through.
so inspiring
Yes.
for the other kids in the community to know that university is a possibility for them now.
Mhm.
Um, so with the church, which you all established, when was the first when were the first meetings under the tree? How many years ago?
Oh, it must have been now almost 30 years ago. Nema wasn't even born. No, about maybe 1980, maybe 1985 or thereabout,
Okay.
or 84. When we, yeah. And also just a few women,
Yeah.
maybe 5 or 6 women.
Yeah.
Of course, the men would not come. They looked down as childish, going under a tree to clap hands. It's just because we were the ones beginning the church. Otherwise, maybe they would have chased us out. But all those men now, 20 years later, the women and the children have prayed them to Christ and they are all in church.
Mhm.
So that's really amazing. So God has really been gracious. And when we resigned, of course, from my work with Bible translation and Sarah with our work teaching high schools back in Nairobi, we started a ministry, CP, Christ Inspired Pastoralist Initiatives,
Mhm.
because we felt a call to go and work among pastoralists because they have unique challenges. And we are associates of Pioneers USA, who are based in Orlando,
Yeah.
and that's how we've been working and getting our support.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. Yeah.
So when you talk about the Maasai's and working amongst pastoralists, tell us a little bit about just the environment and the culture you're stepping into, and yeah, what are some of the unique opportunities and maybe challenges that people might not know about or think about?
It was a little interesting for us starting ministry among our people, because you realize that most of them were actually our relatives.
Yeah.
And ministry among relatives is not easy.
Sure.
But we bless the Lord because over time they have accepted Christ and they came to know Jesus. And before that, many of them were traditionalists. You know, they believed the Maasai also had their form of religion.
Mm.
But over time, as they watched us, because they're very skeptical of new things, they've watched our lives and they watched our family, and they listened to us as we lived among them. I think that really helped us to convince them or to persuade them for Christ. It was hard, like Josiah has said, to convince the men because they felt that that was something that they couldn't do, sit under the tree, clap hands and so on, and mix with the women and children. But amazingly now, all the men have come to church. They all have testimonies. They testify to Jesus Christ. And we really are grateful to God for that. The other challenges that we faced, of course, are traditional beliefs that contradict scripture. But over time, of course, with teaching and sharing and, discussing these things, it is so obvious that people have begun to exalt Christ above those negative or retrogressive ways of living that they used to practice before. So we really thank God for that. Yeah.
And it was for us, we had an advantage in the fact that I grew out there in those villages. And even though we went out and got an education away from the Maasai culture, we still try to live as Maasai as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Because the Maasai valued cows, the men wouldn't listen to us otherwise if we didn't keep any cows. Those are some of the entry points. And that's why it's extremely important for people who go into different cultures to be able to understand and contextualize so that you find the entry points to that culture. What does the culture value? That is not anti-Christ. Or how can you twist it in a way and explain it? So that has been such an amazing advantage to us, and the Lord has given us favor. We didn't just have an education. We have tried to uphold some of the values that are very good in the Maasai culture. So we never condemned even the very negative, but we lived it out. If it is female circumcision, we set an example. It was totally going against the grain, but now we didn't initiate our daughters that way. We had alternatives, initiation rights, and now almost that whole community, they are not practicing girls' circumcision anymore.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
So you guys are so uniquely positioned to, I mean, you have your feet in two worlds, right? I mean, you're both highly educated. Your children are highly educated. You've done ministry all over the world, and you're very much positioned well in that world, and then very well positioned in the Maasai traditional culture as well. And it just seems like God has put you in this really unique place to help bridge the gap, both spiritually and circumstantially for the Maasais between what was and their Christian faith, and even culturally what has been, and valuing that, but at the same time helping move into the change, the fast changing world, and some of the things happening in Kenya that are impacting your community, but maybe for good, but it's also change can be difficult. So talk about some of those challenges of moving forward as you look to the 2 or 3 years ahead of you. What are some of the challenges that you anticipate facing in ministry?
I think something that we are now facing that we didn't have to deal with before is the issue of social media, because we get internet a little bit in the village, and our youth are also getting it when they come to town. So they're getting exposed to stuff that we didn't have to deal with before. And it needs special care. We are really liaising a lot with the diocese and exposing our youth to Christian material and gatherings and fellowships. This coming Friday, we have what they call Kesha, which is actually an overnight prayer meeting. And we have invited the coordinator for the youth, who happens to be our son-in-law, to come and help us with the Kesha. He's very good with the youth, and we believe that he will make an impact with that. So that's one issue that we are having to deal with. We have also had a challenge for a long time, because our young people don't have a high school in the village, as you know. So every time they graduate from junior school, they have to move out of the village. And of course, when they go out of the village, they face new challenges, new ways of life, new attitudes. And when they come back, normally you can tell that they have received or they have seen things that they had never seen before. But we believe that, like Josiah said in the beginning, that our work really is to facilitate and to help them manage these changes, because they're inevitable. We can't hide them, we can't isolate them, but we just have to learn ways of helping them manage the changes that are coming along as we continue.
And I think another challenge, the Maasais have always been very mobile, a very mobile community. They moved from this place to this place. And for the last 30 years, we have lived in a communal land called a group ranch. Mm-hmm. But now we have subdivided that group ranch into individual ranches, and people are going to be a little more settled. You can no longer move your home from one section of Maasai land to another, and that introduces its own challenges. For some parts of where subdivision had taken part in the past, people have sold their pieces of land, and they have almost completely have destitute their families. We have been working hard, because I've been in the leadership of that group ranch. If you see one of the pictures there that we sent, it's the last group ranch meeting where we were dissolving the group ranch. but we have tried to leave it out and to help our people on how to manage this new way of life so that they don't get into the same trap as other people who had earlier subdivided the group land. It has its real benefits, but it has also a lot of challenges. But we are dealing with it, and we are living among our people, and we are trying to still lead by example. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the immediate challenges that you're all facing. Of course, Kenya and Maasai land, like everywhere else in the world, has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then there's also the ongoing annual water challenges and water shortages that y'all face. So talk about some of the immediate challenges that you're facing and how you're addressing those challenges.
I think actually for us as a church, there in a community, particularly as a church, in a way, COVID has been somehow of a blessing. Of course, we closed the church for several months. We were not meeting in the one central place in the church. So we organized the church into 8 different cells, and we saw people who never came to church coming into those cells, and the church just grew so much. We were really blessed. It was a lot of work for us, of course. Every Sunday we are in 3 different small congregations, but it was such a blessing. And right now that people have come back together, there is such a vibrancy, a new fire among the people. So that is, it was a challenge, the COVID. Of course, people are still, the church, the Christians are still very young. So some of the aspects of the church are the giving and so on, but it is coming up slowly. But people are loving coming to church. Yeah. And with the water situation, of course, I said, even as we mentioned and shared when we were there, one of the biggest challenges sometimes is the health of families, especially young children and the elderly. And it was always our desire to try to get them to ensure that they have, each family has some good drinking water, clean water for the young and the elderly. And that's why we asked Summit if you can help us provide tanks for the families. And they have been such a tremendous blessing. Of course, you can imagine the pressure. We have given out some 31 families. There are another 25 waiting like this, but it is amazing. That has been such a blessing, and the water situation is improving. In the past, when we have had support, we have gone to every family and try to encourage them, dig some water pans, so that at least when the rainy season comes, they can retain some water. So that for several months, they let you can use. Yeah.
So there's not yet been found close to you a good groundwater supply, and so for clean drinking water, you're dependent on rainfall and capturing water and keeping water through the dry season. And so how do these, for folks who haven't seen the pictures yet, describe the tanks and how they're used and how that process works.
We were able to supply each of the families with a 5,000 liter tank, and a lot of homes now have corrugated iron sheets. They put in the gutters to collect the water, so they build a base for the tank, and then when the rain comes, they collect the water and close it up until the rainy season stops. And then they begin using that water sparingly, but it's clean water, and it has really reduced a lot of waterborne diseases, especially for the young and the elderly.
Yeah. So they catch water from the roofs. So the rain falls, they catch it from the roof, run it from gutters, tanks.
From gutters, yeah. And sometimes when it is completely dry, those tanks will also help. We don't have a borehole right now, borehole water, although we are trying to drill one, even presently. We haven't yet found water. But in the past, we have gotten water tanks from about 20, 35 kilometers to bring water and then pour it into the tanks. And that's something that families can do.
Okay.
For about $40, they can bring 5,000 liters, and they can refill it. They can use it for the next month, for the very dry seasons.
So even if they run out of water that's been collected from the rainfall, because they have the tanks, they can bring in water and have it delivered.
Yes, quality water.
Yeah. Is that water also used for the cattle, or are the cattle water from other sources?
No, they don't use that water for the cattle at all. The women especially are responsible for those tanks.
Okay.
And will not even let the men have the keys to their tank. So they carry it with their life. They just use it for a few clothes, and they don't have as many clothes as some of the clothes I saw in America. So it's adequate. They don't waste a lot of water that way. So it's mostly for cooking and drinking.
Yeah. The animals walk a long distance.
They walk long distances
to get water. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, as we near the end of our conversation, one of our invitations for the Summit Church family is to engage in our global partnerships, both in knowing how things are going in the ministry, but then also how we can be praying for you. So if you would just share, 3 or 4 things that we can be praying for in the next 6 months as you minister both through the church and through community development and the school and all of that in your village.
Yes, we will appreciate prayer for our family as our children are settling down in their different aspects of life and trying to find little niches for themselves. We'll really appreciate prayer for each one of them. There are 5 of them. They're really all basically young people. And of course, it means that they need to settle down with jobs. They need to settle down with families. So we'd really appreciate prayer for them in that aspect, yes. We also will appreciate prayer for the women, because the women are very vibrant members of the church. Like Josiah already said, they still meet under trees for Bible study every Tuesday. We have 8 groups doing that. And we'll appreciate prayer for particularly growth. We have seen tremendous growth among them, but we'll really appreciate prayer for them to grow and be established in the faith. Yeah.
Pray also for me, as I said, I'm not only in the leadership of the church, but of the community. And we are just in the process of giving each family their title. That process will be completed peacefully, and that will impact a lot of people. We have seen a lot of even leaders within the community coming out to our church. When they want to come to church, they say, we are going to Josiah's church. And that is really favor from God. So continue to pray for us. Pray that we completely finish up the building the sanctuary. We are really grateful to Summit because we got a relatively newer truck that is in working condition.
Usually the truck is the first prayer request, and it's so nice.
Yeah.
And that's not.
We will be painting it in the next 2 weeks again. Just give it completely so that it is glossy. And but we are really, really thankful for that. That is very, very, very helpful. We continue to need, of course, more tanks, and we are thankful, and also continue to pray that our personal support will also continue so that we are able to serve people without any stress.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, it's so good to see the both of you, and please give our greetings to your family, to the kids and the grandkids, to the church, to the community, and both from Summit Church and from the Parker family. And I think I've told you this, but our time with you when we were last there was just the highlight of our travels together as a family, and it felt like home in so many ways. And so it's wonderful to see you over on a computer, but we certainly hope to see you in person again before too long.
And we sure hope that one of these days you can come back not only with yourself, but even a group when things improve a little from Summit Church to
I
come
would
and see really what the Lord has been doing with what they are giving over the years.
I would love
that. Love to have you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and please pass the love to all of them.
To Brandy
And
and
Randy
to
and the children.
I will.
And
So-
the Millers when you see them. And the Millers when you
Yes,
see them.
the Millers. Yeah, I saw them yesterday and I'll see them again this week. So I'll pass.
Everybody who remembers us.
All right. Well, we love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and we'll catch up again soon.